wanted it, listen, I'm making fights. We're rolling. We're going. I leave Sunday. We got all this shit going on here. I leave Sunday. Guys that want to fight, and guys that don't. It's all good. Listen, you don't see me chasing down any pound for pound guys, any big superstars or anybody. I'm just looking for guys who want to fight. Yeah. You want to fight? We got fights for you.
Is there any chance between now and then that Michael could get an opponent, or is he 100%?
No, he's in for that. If anybody falls out of that fight, he'll fly out there early. He'll acclimate. He'll cut weight. He's getting training camp. He will make weight. He'll go no matter what happens, no matter how. It can be midnight the night before and everything can be good. He's getting on the scale the next day because just too much crazy shit has happened, especially this year. I'm not risking anything this year, so he'll be there and go through the whole process.
Started by talking about the weird times that everybody's been featuring and going through this year. You must be incredibly proud of the UFC and your team and the way that they have picked up the baton and run with it. There's a lot of sports entertainment businesses out there that are struggling right now to be able to get back to some type of normality. And the UFC have come out of this leading the way and kind of setting the example for the rest of the world of how about going to do things. So you must be incredibly proud of your team.
Well, thank you. And yes, I am. And that's why I was so cocky about it going into it, saying that we'd do it. I knew that I would spend the money and do whatever it would take. I mean, we were talking about building our own lab here for COVID testing at UFC headquarters. Where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're willing to try to solve problems, you probably will. And who knows what's in store for John Jones? Does he come back to light heavyweight and try to regain it? Does he move to heavyweight or does he retire? So who knows?
Have you had any conversations with John recently? Because fans are obviously excited at the prospect of maybe going to heavyweight, should I say?
I have not.
Do you envisage that it will be heavyweight? It doesn't look like he's done.
I have no clue what John Jones is going to do. He's not interested in fighting right now, so I'm not bugging him. Gaethje's MMA wrestling is on point. I mean, his MMA wrestling is solid. He hits like a truck. He can knock you out with either hand. And then you got Khabib, I mean, who undefeated has stylistically, if you look at a guy like Gaethje, he's the most dangerous type of fighter for Khabib.
To talk about, I mean, over the last couple months, the amount of times, like, as soon as Khabib fought, the amount of people that were just talking like, hey, you're the only guy that can match Khabib's wrestling. You're the only guy that could nullify his wrestling. I mean, to get yourself in the conversation, that's what it all is. It's all.
Well, styles definitely make fights, and that was what became very interesting after the Al Iaquinta fight, where people were looking at, okay, what about high-level wrestlers who have more refined striking?
Yeah.
And how do they line up? And Kevin Lee was a big one that people kept talking about, but you were a big one that people kept talking about too.
Yeah.
Because you were saying that you think you could beat him.
100%.
And him, having that fight with Iaquinta, who he was a prohibitive favorite over, but it went the full 5 rounds. And, Iaquinta, although never won a round, showed some chinks in the armor.
So chinks in the armor showed what happens when Khabib can't take you down. I mean, it's tough whenever the one thing that you've always been used to dominating with isn't working, and then you're stuck.
Right.
You're stuck throwing punches, and you're in. He's a little bit behind in the striking aspect. Dude, I've got a ton of respect for the guy.
He's a mauler.
Mauler. I mean, at certain times he looks unbeatable. He has looked unbeatable where I've looked at it and other people have looked at it, and people that have fought him that I've talked to.
Like the Barboza fight.
Yeah.
He just fucking mauled Barboza.
And it's just a battle of wills, man. Mm-hmm. You're inside of a cage, and it's just like we talked about. I knew I could outpace people. I knew I could out cardio them. I could out tough them. Certain people get to that breaking point and they break and they concede and they go into their shell and they say, I did a good job, but this one's on him. This is
guys
his,
who don't have that deep wrestling background and they face a guy who does. There's moments in the fight where you see that, where you saw that 1,000-yard stare in Barboza's eyes, where he's like, "Fuck, like I can't keep doing this." Like he goes into defensive survival mode.
Yeah.
And you know, when a guy does have a deep background in wrestling and also can strike, that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
And this is why MMA is such a complex sport, because there's so many variables, there's so many techniques you can use, there's so many situations where you might have an advantage or your opponent might have an advantage, and it's just, we live for these matchups, these stylistic matchups. So when something like that happens and a guy like Khabib has a fight where all these questions get presented, that's where a guy like Michael Chandler comes into the mix.
Yeah, well, and I love, like, after that fight, too, because I said something. I posted a video. You see the video of me scrambling with Kamaru Usman, like the crazy, like.
Yeah. That was awesome.
And I said, if all he has is wrestling, how do you beat a man who can't be taken down? You know?
Right.
And I got so many messages from, you know, Russian guys that just said, Khabib time, you know?
Right,
and it's just
of course.
Like, of course, you know, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, man, where, I mean, that fight with Eddie, I mean, that fight with Khabib, it's exciting.
Kamaru Usman has got to be going fucking crazy right now, seeing Colby Covington getting a shot at the interim title. He's like, "You motherfuckers!"
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
nobody wants to fight that dude.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, that dude is. I mean, he's a specimen. He's got wrestling. He's got striking. I mean, you watch him spar, or you watch him hit mitts, or you watch his composure and his confidence while he's sparring and doing all that kind of stuff. You'd think he's been striking since he was 11 years old. You know, he just started after college. You know.
Well, he had a tough fight with
Meek Mill?
Yeah.
Emil Meek or whatever?
Emil Meek. But I think that Emil Meek is extremely underrated.
Extremely underrated.
I mean, he's a fucking tough guy. Very physically strong. Very, very strong.
I was Emil Meek a couple times. I was like trying to mimic him.
Oh, were you in training camp?
Yeah, we were there at the same time. And he's done that. Him and I train a ton together. And it works out well for me because he's a bigger guy. I like to go with a little bit bigger guys so I can just continue to get stronger and manipulate bodies that are bigger than mine, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of people were criticizing him for not being able to finish Meek, but I'm like, you're crazy. Yeah. That guy is a fucking animal.
It's nuts the amount of people, you know, armchair quarterbacks that are literally out there saying you should have finished this guy.
Yes.
We are all professional fighters training day in and day out. It's not easy to finish a guy sometimes.
Well, that's why I was saying you got to stay the fuck away from your Twitter mentions.
Yeah. It's like, man, it's just toxic. Oh my goodness.
Well, especially for a guy like you, if you do have something like an ankle injury, like that one fight, and then you got to stay offline for a few weeks.
For sure. Oh, I mean, I still get it to this day. Well, are you training? Are you working on your rubber ankles? Are you, know, it's like, oh, come on.
Motherfuckers, they know where your soft spot is.
Nah, man.
They start poking you.
I hit record a drop, you can't ignore it.